Hey everybody, this is Darren Van Dam and you are watching Flick Connection, the show that helps you get more out of movies, and I'm back today with another list of 20 excellent sci-fi movies you can currently watch on Netflix. So the sci-fi lists are by far my most popular. I did one just a few weeks ago and a lot of those are still on Netflix. I'll put a link to that in the description. And there's no repeats from that list on this list. So if you watch them both, you should have plenty of sci-fi movies to watch over the next month or two. This video is sponsored by 80s Tees. There's a link to their website in the description. I'll tell you more about them and show you more of their shirts that I recently bought later in the video. But my number 20 pick is a little known sci-fi movie called Rememory. Now this stars Peter Dinklage, and the thing that I liked about his role here is he's not playing a little person. Now obviously he is, they didn't do anything weird with special effects, but there's no real reason for him to be. Meaning the movie has nothing to do with his size, he's just a really talented actor and he plays a great role here. And the sci-fi element is sort of this technology that allows you to dive into memories or erase memories, kind of like Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind, but instead of revolving around this romance, this revolves around kind of like a murder and some suspicious activities, and he's trying to piece things together. It's really kind of a surprise of a movie. Just keep in mind, I say this all the time, it's a small movie. It's not going to blow your mind, but for like a fun, intriguing sci-fi watch that's really well done, it just doesn't have a lot of action or anything like that in it. It's very interesting, and again, just a surprise of a movie that they just recently added on Netflix. Now, if that doesn't interest you, and I think it'll interest a lot of you, you may want more action. Battle Los Angeles is a pretty cool sci-fi flick. Now, the way to look at this one isn't this great movie. The way to look at this one is sort of like a modern take on old drive-in movies. Just alien attack, that's all this movie is, but it's shot kind of like Black Hawk Down. Now don't get me wrong, I'm not suggesting it's anywhere near as good as Black Hawk Down, but the production design on this one is very similar to war movies like Black Hawk Down, and then it's basically just an alien invasion, full stop, the whole way through the movie, very much like kind of old school sci-fi movies. So it's fun in that respect, and then just in terms of a piece of cinema and how much it's going to make you think, there's not a ton there for you, but sometimes you just want to turn your brain off and watch some shit blow up. Now, one that sort of like lives between those two worlds I'm talking about is Priest. Now this one looks beautiful. It's really amazing looking. It's one of the best looking movies on this list. It's got this Matrix feel. It's kind of got a little bit of an underworld vibe. There's these like vampire creature things in the future, and it's you know, based on a graphic novel. It just looks amazing. Ultimately, I think they kind of failed in the storytelling department, which is, you know, ultimately the most important thing to do when you're making a movie. However, it's so beautiful and the action is so just interesting, and there's not a frame in this movie that looks like anything else that you've seen. That makes this movie have value for me. But keep in mind, it is way towards the back of this list, but if you just want to watch something that looks great, this is a good way to go. Now, we're already upping the ante. We're getting to more and more interesting movies pretty quickly on this list. And The Signal is one that I have talked about before, but it wasn't on the last list, so I'd like to include it for new subscribers. That said, I can't say too much because this one is just a mystery box of a movie. Lawrence Fishburne has a pretty cool role, even though he doesn't really speak much. But this is about some hackers that find this signal and they track it down. And then ultimately the main character wakes up in this hospital setting and has no idea what's going on. I don't want to tell you any more than that, other than I was shocked at where this one went, how well it developed, and then some of the visuals that unfold in the back half of the movie. They're amazing. Like, this movie is back-loaded. It's fairly slow-paced up front, but it's intriguing. It's gonna get your interest pretty quick. It never fell flat. It just kept increasing. And for just like this hidden gem of a movie on Netflix, it's top notch. I'm honestly kind of wondering why I have it so far back, but looking at the list, I can see why. There's some great stuff on this list. Sweetheart is another sort of hidden gem thing that I recently watched on Netflix. I say recently, I mean it was last year, but I enjoyed the hell out of this movie. This is like a castaway thing. It's about this young girl who gets trapped on this island and she's having to fend for herself, so you get that element. It's that type of a movie, but there's something very weird going on. And what I try to do on this channel is not tell you any more than the trailers tell you, and the trailers and the marketing for this movie definitely lead you to believe that there is some sort of large creature on this island stalking her. If you like the way I've talked about it and you like the way it looks, you're not going to be disappointed by it. And another just lesser known movie that did do well when it was released on Netflix, it made it into their new top 10 feature, is Freaks. Now this is one that I was interested in. I almost paid to rent it, and then right before I did, I saw that Netflix was adding it because I typically look at that stuff early on. I waited, and I would have paid to go to the theater. I would have paid for a babysitter and for me and my wife to go to the theater, popcorn, soda, and I would not have been disappointed with this movie. Some of the visual effects are a little bit lacking because it is a lower budget movie, but if you're good at sort of like putting that out of your mind and not letting it take you out of the movie, this one is very, very interesting. It's a little intense at times because it deals with this little girl who's basically quarantined in a house, and it's not clear as to whether her father is crazy or whether something is actually going on. And the way things unfold, I was really impressed with this movie. I think they did such a good job with the writing and ultimately with the finished product of this movie that they opened themselves up to this whole world. Like, they basically built this entire world with this very small story that takes place in essentially one or two places. I hope we get more. As soon as the credits rolled on this one, I was just eager to see more. I don't love the title of the movie. I think it's a little misleading, is why. But I want to see more within this universe. And then if you like that one, you'll also really like Code 8, and vice versa. If you saw Code 8 and you liked it, I highly recommend Freaks. They're not super similar, but I think they're going to appeal to the same audience. Code 8 deals with this future where people have powers. Some people have powers, rather, and they're illegal, and there's this police force that are these androids that are essentially just put there to stop the use of these powers because the rest of us, normal people, are terrified of these people with powers. So this one deals with sort of this criminal underbelly of these people that have these powers that are trying to use them to pull off heists and stuff. If that doesn't interest you, I don't know that this movie's gonna interest you, but I don't know who that wouldn't interest. That description sounds amazing to me. This is actually based on a short film and it was crowdfunded, it was made in Canada. This movie looks like it cost way more than it did. I like this one better than a lot of the other like mutant movies that have been coming out. I think they did a far superior job to what Hollywood is putting out in a similar vein right now. Now, Groundhog Day may not seem like a science fiction movie, but it totally is. It's total science fiction that this guy keeps waking up on the same day over and over again. The thing I love about this one is that I love Bill Murray, but this is also one of the better like Bill Murray-led movies. Obviously, when you think of Bill Murray, you think of things like Ghostbusters and Caddyshack. Those are more ensemble pieces or he's in a supporting role. But in Groundhog Day, he is the lead and he carries the entire movie. It's up there with movies like Stripes where I just enjoy watching him. He's such an entertaining actor to watch, and the movie's just really fun. There's a reason it's continued to be a classic, and I honestly think it's one of the better watches currently available on Netflix. If it's been a while since you've seen it, it's one of the happier movies on this list because sci-fi movies, let's face it, tend to be pretty intense, and I've got a couple of others closer to the #1 spot that are a little more happy-spirited than a lot of the other ones mixed on this list. What Happened to Monday is a Netflix original movie that got criminally overlooked by a lot of people, myself included. I didn't really have any interest in this one, despite the fact that I like Willem Dafoe and I like Noomi Rapace, and she plays 7 different characters in this one. And the setup for this one is explained in the first 3 minutes of the movie. In the future, overpopulation has become a problem, and then the world government has decided to basically squash childbirth. Essentially, the Chinese one-child policy is now a global policy, and it's pretty rough stuff. But Noomi Rapace plays septuplets. She's got 6 sisters, there's 7 of them. and they're only allowed to go out on each day of the week. So their names are Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. But then through a turn of events, Monday goes missing and things get really out of control. Now, this one, not only does it look great and again look like something that could have easily come out in theaters and just have been sort of at least a moderate success, it's very epic too. I believe it's over 2 hours. The story just continues to build, and when you think it's over, it's got even more to say, and I wasn't tired of it. I wasn't waiting for it to finish. I really enjoyed this one. I was surprised at how much I liked it, and I was kind of disappointed that I passed on it for so long.
People should not be afraid of their governments. Governments should be afraid of their people.
And then the last one in my bottom 10 is V for Vendetta. Now, I really have always wanted to love this movie more than I have, but don't get me wrong, it's right here in the middle of this list. It's fantastic. It's from the creators of The Matrix. It's based on a graphic novel. Natalie Portman's great in it. Hugo Weaving, who most of you know as Agent Smith from The Matrix, plays the main character, I guess we'll say, V. He does it all from behind a mask, and really, that's tough to do. Like, a lot of people were impressed with how well Tom Hardy acted behind the Bane mask, but you could still see his eyes. Hugo Weaving is performing behind this complete facial covering, and it really comes through. He does a great job. You get this great 1984 element, and they even thought to include John Hurt, who was in the 1984 movie. It's kind of meta at times. If you never saw it, I kind of feel like this one's close to like a must watch. It's hard for me to recommend it that hard because I feel like it loses itself a little bit, but it's damn close to a must watch, which is why it tops my bottom 10. So I mentioned the show's sponsor, 80s Tees. This is one of their shirts. It's a fantastic Japanese Army of Darkness shirt. I love it. It's super soft, it's comfortable. And the thing I like about a lot of the stuff at 80s Tees, they're very unique. They're not stuff you're gonna see in the local Hot Topic. They're not things that other people are gonna be walking around wearing, but they've got amazing shirts from some of your favorite bands. They've got great shirts from some of your favorite TV shows from the 70s, 80s, and 90s. 100 points to anyone who knows what movie this shirt is from in the comments below. But I like wearing stuff like this because only true movie lovers would really get it. And they've also got great stuff from brands that do not exist anymore. A great way to support the show is to support the sponsors, and I recommend them. It's a really well-run company. I've been familiar with them for a long time. They've got, again, just a ton of stock to choose from. So it's highly unlikely you're not going to find multiple shirts that you absolutely love and feel like you need to have. So again, just check out that link in the description. But let's move on with the top 10 on this list. Now my number 10 pick is one that has actually topped another list last year. It's still on Netflix. It's still a fairly unknown movie considering kind of how grand it is and who's in it. And that's Equilibrium, which stars Christian Bale. And this is a cool flick. I mean, Christian Bale plays this like enforcer type guy who is a good fighter, but like has this fighting style with pistols. I don't know how practical it is, but visually it's stunning. It looks really great. This movie looks great from the first frame to the last. And then it's a very interesting sort of, again, like a 1984 type concept, a Big Brother, heavy government type concept, book burning type stuff. While it is kind of now a cult classic and it does have a following, I know for a fact there are a lot of you watching that are not familiar with this movie, and you should be. Check it out. It's got a great supporting cast. Taye Diggs is in it, Sean Bean, and it's just a gem of a movie that really should have been more appreciated in its time when it was originally released. Another movie underappreciated in its time is Event Horizon, and it's another one that has topped another list of mine, and it's way at the back of my top 10 here on this list. This one is super creepy. It is a space horror movie in the vein of Alien, but there's something very, very weird going on with this one. If you like anything H.P. Lovecraft, in my opinion, Event Horizon is one of the better Lovecraftian movies to have ever been made. Now, there are several. This is one of them. Odds are you're familiar with Lovecraft. You just may not be familiar with the name. I'm running the risk of spoiling this movie, and I don't want to do it. But Sam Neill has a great role in here. Lawrence Fishburne again. And it's just this abandoned spacecraft that is basically kind of like a haunted house type movie. If you like good horror movies, there's a very good chance that you've seen this one. But if you do and you haven't, make this one the first one you watch on this list. It's really cool, it's extremely dark, and it's gory at times too. So if you're super sensitive to that stuff, this is not going to be the movie for you. If you love that stuff, get on it as soon as you finish this video. This one, I had to put it on the list because I appreciate the filmmaking of this one so much. But it's for the least amount of you watching. It's for a fairly small sliver of humanity, and it's called Under the Skin. This stars Scarlett Johansson. And the way that they made this movie is incredible. I've talked about it on the channel before, but it's been a while. She plays this alien disguised as a human that goes out and picks up men and brings them back to her, what we'll call a lair, to what we'll call consume them. The way it's all presented is visually very stunning, but it's also very otherworldly. The amazing thing about the filmmaking process is she actually went out in this cargo van and picked up real guys on the side of the road. So a couple of the guys you see getting into the car literally just chatted up this beautiful woman, and they get into the van. Now, she had security in the back and there's hidden cameras and stuff, but that just adds a bit of chill to it. And then it's got this Stanley Kubrick-like quality. So if you love Stanley Kubrick movies, I'm not saying that John Glazer, who directed this, is exactly like Stanley Kubrick, but he's the closest person working today in terms of that Kubrick style and in terms of being something fresh and different. So if you consider yourself to be kind of one of those cinephiles that just loves Kubrick and is looking for the next thing kind of like it, very good chance you've seen this, but if you haven't, this is the first one you need to watch. Now, one that everybody loves, or everybody should love, I think, is Starship Troopers. This is one that had mixed reviews when it came out, but this is actually from the same director as RoboCop, and it is a fun movie. And while people did appreciate it upon its release, a lot of people didn't quite get it. This is satire. It's got this campiness to it that is really well executed. I love stuff like that in movies when they're fairly self-aware. And Starship Troopers, in my opinion, is extremely self-aware. There's cheesiness to it, but it's not throughout. Some of the action sequences, there's real peril, so it's not all cheese. There's real violence, there's a sex element. It's just got all these sort of things that, again, I mentioned RoboCop, that made RoboCop so special and fun to watch. Those elements and that flavor got dumped into Starship Troopers as well. If you want to just watch a fun sci-fi movie, looking at the list, there's some great movies on this list, but this one is, I think, one of the most fun.
Is it badly infected?
There's a lot of suppuration.
All right. Also, you should know on my right hand some fingernails were coming loose, and I had black fluid coming out of my nose and sort of a black vomit.
A personal favorite of mine is District 9. I've loved this one since it came out. I couldn't get enough of it when it came out. I desperately want a sequel to this movie. The director, Neil Blomkamp, really made headlines with this movie because he made it for, I believe, about $30 million, which sounds like a lot of money. But in terms of the scope of this movie and the amount of visual effects and all the sci-fi elements, you're talking the giant UFOs, the alien creatures, the weaponry is laser blasters, and there's these mech, robot things. I mean, every shot in this movie after the first few minutes is loaded with visual effects. And the refugee metaphor is so, it's on the nose, but not in a bad way, which is so rare. There's just something so magic about this movie that works. And then you get this crazy sci-fi shit with these lightning guns that just explode bodies. The thing about it that impresses me so much is that even though it's loaded with all this crazy stuff, it's glued together and it works really well, and it's ultimately a very good story that's extremely well told. All right, now we're into the top 5, and on this list, these are classic sci-fi movies. I had to include them because they are the best sci-fi movies currently on Netflix, starting with Inception. I absolutely love this movie. I cannot wait to see Christopher Nolan's next movie, Tenet. It looks like it's going to be the closest thing he's done to Inception. I think it's going to be hard for it to beat Inception in my book. And another cool thing about Inception is it was so widely loved and appreciated. It's quite possibly Mrs. Van Dam's favorite movie of all time, and I will never hesitate to watch it with her because it's so fun. Not only do you get all the sci-fi elements, but it's a heist movie that breaks the mold and does things that no other heist movie has ever done. And then you get these amazing performances from obviously people like DiCaprio. Tom Hardy's got a small role, but a really great one. I love Joseph Gordon-Levitt's character. Everybody works so good in this one, and it's just got such an amazing look to it. Now we're in the top 4, and Steven Spielberg either directed or was involved with 3 of my top 4. One of them being Minority Report. This is one of my favorite Spielberg movies of this century. This one and Munich are probably my top 2. I love what he did with this movie. I loved it when it came out, but I still like watching it. I think Tom Cruise kills it. I think outside of the Mission Impossible movies, this is one of his best this century. It's really intense, and it's very smart, and it works. I typically don't like when movies like this are PG-13 because it feels forced. It feels like they're trying not to use foul language and they're trying not to show blood. But with the way the weapons work and the way this story unfolded, I never felt like this movie was holding back. I felt like it was fairly genuine and ultimately tells this great story, very much like What Happened to Monday. It's very epic. It's got this big overarching story that really reaches. And then it's got all these other little stories that happen within it that all work well, like the surgery scene where he gets his eyes changed. That is a self-contained short film that works really well with the little spider robots coming after him. Are you kidding me? Like, that's one of my favorite scenes in a sci-fi movie of all time. And then this movie's got some other great chase sequences and everything. It looks like it was made yesterday, and this movie's almost 20 years old. I love everything about it. If you've never seen it, do yourself a favor and watch it. But honestly, if it's just been a while since you've seen it, I think if you revisit it, you'll be surprised that you forgot how good this movie actually is. All right, my number 3 pick is The Matrix. It's on Netflix right now. I can't not have it on this list. In fact, I don't know the last time I've had it on a list of mine. But The Matrix changed a lot when it came out, and it influenced a lot. Something else really great to know about this movie, without me spending too much time on it, is technically it's very well executed. So let's just say the lobby shootout, for instance, it's chaos. Like, there's just bullets flying everywhere. There's tiles busting and concrete shrapnel everywhere. And yes, they do the cool stuff where they're running in slow motion and running up the wall and all of that. But this movie's so well directed by almost first-time directors. It's really their second movie, and their first movie was only done to prove that they could direct a movie before the studio would give them the rights to direct The Matrix. It's a modern-day masterpiece. It's really well done, on top of just being a really badass flick. Back to the Future just recently got added. I'm not going to go on to explain what this movie's about. I can't imagine more than 1% of you not having ever seen this movie. It is one of those movies everyone has seen. So instead of telling you about the movie, I'll tell you this. In the age of reboots and remakes, it is highly unlikely that we will ever see a remake of Back to the Future. And while this one is produced by Steven Spielberg, it was created and directed by Robert Zemeckis, who's an amazing director, went on to do movies like Forrest Gump. He's got a great filmography list, but this is his bread and butter. This is his baby. And in the contracts for the rights to this movie, he basically wrote in the fact that this cannot be remade as long as he's taking air into his lungs. And quite honestly, I don't know that it needs to be remade. It still holds up today. It's got such a great quality to it. And honestly, I think it's possibly one of the best movies ever made, just because It's so enjoyable for so many people. That is a quality that not a lot of movies have, and Back to the Future just has it in spades. So with all that gushing on my number 2 pick, what could possibly be number 1? And number 1 is honestly a movie I don't think I like as much as some of the ones that I just talked about, but it is an absolute masterpiece in so many ways, and that is Steven Spielberg's E.T. Not only was this one a cultural phenomenon when it came out, visually it's amazing. If you go, just trust me, go watch this movie. It looks incredible today. It came out 2 years before I was born. This movie looks better than I do. It's amazing how good it looks because it's been preserved, but the cinematography that Spielberg was doing at the time is really incredible. It's so rare for a family-friendly movie to be so captivating and engrossing for adults. Spielberg was a genius with this movie, but just talking about it now, I really want to go back and rewatch E.T. If it's been a long time since you've seen it or some of the other hit movies that I've talked about, consider checking them out. Consider checking out the 80s Tease link in the description, and be sure to let me know what you plan on watching in the comments. Let's take a moment to thank all the Patreon supporters who help keeping the channel alive. Channel memberships are coming. If you're watching this the week it comes out, they're not available yet. If you're watching this much later than that, they're available. There's a join button, go check it out. But stay tuned, there will be an update on that coming out very soon. But I will keep making videos like this one as long as you keep watching them. Thanks for watching this sci-fi episode, and you will see me on the next one.